Start off by saying, just your participation and your response alone is great because we shared these results the last couple of times that we've done this, and then this group continues to grow, so it really shows that staff really, wants to help out wherever they can to really improve the experience for all staff across campus. So thank you again for coming. I'm going to start off by welcoming EVC and Provost Scott Law to say a few words to you.
I want to thank Waylon for inviting me to come and just say hello, and also to encourage you to get engaged in the staff engagement survey. This is a really important diagnostic for us, and it's very important in helping us chart a course and what we need to do to improve life with staff here at UCLA. I can't emphasize enough how important the staff are to the success of UCLA. We talk a lot about faculty and students, and we talk a lot about our academic and research achievements, but none of that would have been possible but for the work that you do in the departments and centers and programs and hospitals and clinics and everywhere that you work. And were it not for the strong engagement that you have in the institution and the mission of the institution, the mission wouldn't work at all. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to encourage you to be as engaged in the survey as you possibly can. The better the response rate, the better we know what we need to do on our part to help you carry out your work and feel as engaged as you possibly can. So I want to thank you for coming today. I want to thank you for the work that you do day in and day out, and I want to thank you for participating in the 2018 engagement survey, which Waylon will be talking about. So thank you very much, and I hope it's enjoyable. It's a fantastic survey. So anyway, Waylon.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for making the time out of your busy day to stop by to say hello. And then I'm going to also introduce Luby Levin. She's our Associate Vice Chancellor for Campus Human Resources, but also the executive sponsor of her staff assembly. So I'm going to invite her to say a few words as well.
I want to thank all of you as well. It's great to have you volunteering for this special work. The work is so important in building a campus culture where staff are deeply engaged in the activities, and we sometimes in HR don't necessarily know what's on your minds in terms of what you think is important, so it has great value for us. It was wonderful to have our Executive Vice Chancellor drop by. As I'm sure you can imagine, his schedule is extremely challenging. And for him to come by, I think, says a lot about UCLA's leadership. And I know Chancellor Block feels the same way about how important all of your work is. I want to thank our team members from the Staff Assembly, Wallen, Kevin, Brittany. Sorry, I always get your name wrong. My apologies. Okay. They're going to do a great presentation on the results of the survey, which is a 2017 survey, and we had the first one in 2015, and we expect another one in 2 more years. So we wanted to get staff engaged and have you participate in many of the activities that we know will make a difference in the results. And obviously, as with any survey, we start with a baseline and look at that in terms of continuous improvement. So while we did better in a couple of categories than we did 2 years ago, we also have a lot of room to improve and a lot of work to do. So thank you again. It's my pleasure to work with you and the Staff Assembly. We're delighted to have this team approach, especially for Coach Wooden. We're here, and that really exemplifies working together as a team. Thank you. Wallen?
Okay, so before we get started, I'm going to give you a lay of the land. We're going to do about a 10 to 15-minute presentation of the results, just really high level. We're going to send out more raw data after the event so that you guys can see that, but we want to touch on the major points. So after that, we're going to ask you to break out into groups. So there's 4 areas, so you can choose the area of your interest. And we're going to take 10 minutes to discuss high-level. There's a high-level question to ask you about it, and so then you guys can answer that, discuss in groups. You guys are going to pick a scribe that will take notes, and you guys will also pick a speaker to present, report back, like a 2-minute report back. So at the end of that, we'll give you a lay of the land of what the next steps are, and kind of get you engaged in that. And then hopefully we'll have some time left over so you guys can still mingle and network with each other, and then get some food in the back. So without further ado, And sorry, I don't know if I introduced myself earlier, but well, I know, and I'm the president of Staff Assembly this year, and Kevin later will be speaking as well. He's the president-elect, so he's the incoming president. So just to let you know about the 2017 results. So our team, our leadership team on Staff Assembly, and also the leadership team at Campus Human Resources took a really close look at them and reviewed it together. And then from there, we've kind of come up with our initial recommendations, which you guys are here down the line in the presentation. But it's just to show you how the vast array of departments we represent, and also even the roles that we hold throughout the campus. So it's great that we're able to pull in the health system this year, even though they weren't part of the survey results. I think whatever we come out, whatever recommendations we make out of this will affect the whole campus as a whole, including the health system. So it's really important. So just want to let you know, see that, and then we're just going to jump on to the next slide. And then the UC engagement survey results is actually something, or just an engagement survey itself, is something that's co-sponsored by UC Staff Assembly, the Council of UC Staff Assemblies, which we're a part of. There's one from each entity, each campus, and then including Berkeley Lab, UC Agricultural and Natural Resources, and UCOP. That's the 13 entities, and it's also co-sponsored by UCOP that we do the survey once every two years, but since 2002, so there's a 3-year break between 2012, 2015, and 2017. So what we're going to share with you is the results from 2017 and how we improved. And there is, as Luby mentioned earlier, there is a foreseeable commitment from UCOP and CUCSA to basically do the survey continuously or every 2 years in the foreseeable future. So here's a quick background about the survey. Recently, we had about 51% of the people respond to the survey that were randomly selected throughout the UC system. At UCLA alone, we had 44%, and both were increases. 51% was up 5% from the last time we did the survey in 2015, and then UCLA alone jumped to 44% from 40% participation rate. About 1,700 people responded at UCLA, and so that's a great, it's very statistically significant, so I wanted to let you know about that. And then next, I'm gonna have Brittany come up to, data expert extraordinary is gonna come up and share.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay without the mic, or should I use the microphone?
Use the microphone.
Okay. A lot of things to hold. So I'm first going to explain how to read the slide, and then I'll talk about the results. So the survey assessed staff attitudes on a number of categories, which are listed on the left. And this slide shows UCLA 2017 scores in the middle and compares them to 2015, 2012 US national norm and university staff norms. And the norms are derived from top organizations that Willis Towers Watson works with, and that's the consulting firm that ran the survey. Green colors indicate an increase, red colors indicate a decrease, and the deeper colors with the asterisk indicate a statistically significant change. And when you see an NA, that's because there was nothing to compare to. So taking the first row as an example, in 2017, 60% of UCLA staff had a favorable score on career development. And this is a 1% increase from 2015, a 4% increase from 2012. However, we're still 3% percentage points lower than the US national norm and 1 percentage point lower than the university staff norm. So looking at the overall picture, UCLA has been improving in most areas year over year. We saw a significant increase for performance management, however, it's still one of the lower performing areas. And organizational change saw a statistically significant decrease down to just 35%. And while overall the picture is good and UCLA has been improving in most areas, we are still behind the US national norm and our university peers. And in case anyone was interested how UCLA did compared to other locations, you can see that the trend is pretty similar, with performance management increasing across the board and organizational change declining at most locations. Respondents were asked one open-ended response in the survey, which was, what 1 or 2 suggestions do you have that would most improve your campus/location as a place to work? 925 respondents chose to take the time to write in a response, and from that, 3 main themes emerged, which were career development, organizational change, and performance management. So 19% of those responded stated that they perceive that many positions are at or near a career dead end, resulting in few opportunities for advancement. 14% stated that they see the need for change, but that sometimes it's poorly communicated and rolled out. And 11% believe that the connection between their pay and their contribution to the university is weak. The consulting firm conducted a segmentation analysis, which identified respondents into one of 4 engagement categories, which were highly engaged, unsupported, detached, and disengaged. So the highly engaged group scored high on engagement, feeling enabled, and feeling energized. So here at UCLA in 2017, 31% were classified in this area, which is just a little bit lower than the national norm and the 2015 scores. A quarter of respondents were classified as unsupported. So these folks are engaged, they believe in UCLA's mission, but they scored a little bit lower on feeling enabled and energized. So by focusing on this group and giving them the resources and tools they need to feel more enabled and engaged, we have a really great opportunity to move more people into the highly engaged segment. So what things lead to engagement? A driver's analysis was also conducted, which identified 3 key drivers, which closely align with what we saw come out of the open-ended responses. So those key drivers were career development, performance management, and working relationships. So after reviewing the survey results and recommendations, UCLA Staff Assembly and CHR leadership have identified these 4 areas as the priority areas for improvement. And while we didn't specifically select diversity and inclusion, we believe that this should be included in all of the 4 priority areas. Okay, I'm going to hand off now to Kevin. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, thank you guys, and thanks everyone for coming. So the next few slides are going to focus on the 4 priority areas that Brittany just mentioned. First, let's start with career development, and I wanted to ask you guys a question. Can you guess how many UC staff are set to retire by 2024? Any guesses? 57? Any other guesses? Anyone want to take the over-under?
74.
So it's about a third. About a third of UC, so University of California-wide staff, are scheduled to retire by 2024. So you can imagine that there's a big need for us to start to build our bench and focus on the needs of the younger generation and the younger workforce, and making sure that we're thinking about ways we can address their needs. This is one example of a survey that was performed in which they asked a group of millennials what are the 3 benefits that you would most value from an employer. And as you can probably guess, the number 1 was training and development. So I think across the board, people are very interested in being trained and continuing to develop within their careers. Next, let's chat for a second about organizational change. So I think we can all agree that at a large organization like UCLA, change is very difficult. And there's lots of current and future change happening here all the time. So we think engaging staff, all of us, everyone in this room, in any changes that are coming at UCLA is very important, and we want to make sure to engage staff early and often. Next, effective performance management is crucial for strong recruitment and retention. In fact, there was a 2015 Gallup poll that pointed out the harsh truth of why most Americans leave their jobs, and it was the statistic was that 50% who have left a job was to actually get away from their manager, not necessarily because of the type of work they do. So if we apply that to UCLA, that means 1 out of every 2 people that leave UCLA, they're not leaving because they don't like UCLA or they don't like what we're doing here. They're leaving because they have some sort of disagreement or issue with their direct manager. So we feel that performance management is another key area in which we can help not only frontline staff but also managers do a better job to encourage people to stay at UCLA, hopefully for their entire careers. And finally, we included work relationships as one of our 4 priority areas, because strong career development, organizational change, and performance management are just some of the benefits of healthy work relationships. And we feel that healthy work relationships feed into a strong organizational culture. And there was a famous educator, an author who once said that organizational culture actually eats strategy for breakfast, and then later his quote was amended to say for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I think the main point here is just to stress how important organizational culture is for everything we do at our organization. So the next 3 slides are going to touch on diversity and inclusion, which Brittany mentioned we believe should really be incorporated across the board. So the 2017 engagement survey was actually the first time that we asked these 2 diversity and inclusion questions, and there was also a wellness question that was asked as well. So there's nothing to compare against from our 2015 and 2012 surveys. However, as we dive deeper into the different categories, we can see some stark differences based on people's positions and roles at UCLA, from individual contributor all the way to director and above. So you can kind of see the differences here. And we can see even greater differences when you look at it based on respondents' race, ethnicity. So that's why we think it's extremely important for us to consider diversity and inclusion in the other 4 priority areas that we've just laid out. And in order to see a real impact on these types of diversity and inclusion issues, it really has to be all of our jobs. It can't just be one person or one office that's pushing this agenda. It has to be everyone. And this is a quote that came out of one of our UC Coro reports, and it says, "Once the leadership is engaged, the responsibility for and opportunity to improving equity and inclusion needs to be owned by everyone throughout the organization to achieve sustained and measurable change." So we're going to kind of emphasize that as we go into the work groups, is we always have to think about how do we continue to diversify our workforce as we are also focusing on improving these 4 areas. So with that said, I'll turn it back over to Wong to wrap up here.
Thanks, Kevin and Brittany. So next, this slide is to show you, this was actually our call to action slide when we presented it. We've been on a UC engagement survey results roadshow for the last 2 months. We first presented at Equity Advisors meeting, and then we presented at the HCI Steering Committee meeting, and subsequently been invited to the Vice Chancellor's meeting to speak in front of Chancellor Block and all the Vice Chancellors. And then we also got invited to the Dean's Council meeting, which you heard earlier from EBC and Provost Wah. That's the meeting he leads, where it has all the vice provosts and the deans of the different academic units throughout campus there. So needless to say, we got this information in front of basically all leadership at UCLA, and I think we definitely made a concerted effort of that. Oh, one group I forgot I left out, the group that usually is most interested in this is the HR advisory group, the HRAG. So the HR directors throughout campus also meet, and we present this to them as well. So they're all very engaged. They've already sent us recommendations, because we gave them, this is our wish list of who we think, and kind of our recommendations, who would be ideal candidates to serve on these task forces that we want to form to make preliminary recommendations. But just because if you don't fall within this list doesn't mean we don't want you to apply as well. So we definitely want to encourage you to consider it. But right now we're going to break out into groups because we want to hear from you. We don't want to just be talking to you all day. We want to make this interactive. So we're going to ask you to break out into groups. We have 4 corners of the room where you can choose from. We have career development in the front, kind of line up with this, or organizational change by the camera over here. And then we have working relationships in the back over there. And then on the back left, we have, orange management over there, and then working relationships on the back left. So each of us are going to lead the conversations in a group, and we just want you to, when you get in groups, please select 1 to 2 scribes. Maybe just 1 is good, because it looks like we have a manageable group, depending on the groups and then select also a presenter to report back. So we're going to take 10 minutes to do a breakout and have discussion and write down some ideas, and then the presenter is going to take 2 minutes to briefly kind of give us a high-level view of some ideas that's been surfaced in the different priority areas. And then we just want you to answer this question. If UCLA was operating in the respective priority area that you're going to be at an optimal level, what are some programs, opportunities, et cetera, that should be offered or available to staff? So we want you to just think high level right now. Don't think about funding constraints or resources. Just let us know what you, and then if you guys are already doing stuff in your areas, feel free to share that as well. Because today I was like searching through the Administrative Vice Chancellor site, and I didn't realize they had a mentoring program for the housing and hospitality staff. So that's something that should definitely be in the career development part, but maybe it could be expanded across the university and not just at housing, hospitality, but stuff like that. So we want to hear ideas like that. So right now, please feel free to choose a group and we're going to go to our spots. And I'm going to ask Kelly to be timekeeper for us. What time is it? Okay, so if you could timekeep us for about 11 minutes to about 2:05 and then we'll come back.